But the problem for the White House is that so many voters are not making their decision on the economy. And the problem is the ones who are most likely to make a decision on the economy, and this is true in poll after poll, they're the ones who are most bearish on the presidency. What else is out there? A stunning number from Gallup this month, just out yesterday, of October polling showing the president at 75% among Democrats. That's a low. Joe, that should be close to 100. It's 75. The reasons aren't all clear. One of them is the poll was in the field when the president made his trip to Israel. There definitely is obviously a split about that among Democrats.
Real split among Democrats regarding Israel. And maybe you see that in the poll. I will say, as Mike said, helpfully, if you're making under $100,000 a year, which in the past was certainly more than enough to take care of your family. If you're making under $100,000 a year, housing prices are absolutely extraordinary. Rent prices have exploded. When interest rates go up and mortgage rates go up to 8%, you're making under $100,000. You've got a family of four. You're not buying a house. I mean, there's a story in the Times, I think yesterday, a woman who's making $73,000 living in her car. Again, just the housing prices alone are just out of control for people who are making under $100,000.
Yeah, housing prices have certainly skyrocketed. Inflation, though, has cooled. It's still higher. People are still feeling that. People are still grappling with that. And poll after poll suggests that Americans don't feel great about the economy, and they don't think the president's done a good job. And the president and the White House point to metric after metric, including the GDP number yesterday, that suggests that's simply not true.
Right.
And Mike, we were just mentioning the Bidenomics rollout. They acknowledged White House that didn't really work. So they have shifted. They're trying to shift the conversation around the economy now. But you just actually hinted at where I wanted to go with you. Is there's a real growing and worrisome for those in the West Wing enthusiasm problem around this president, particularly among young voters. We mentioned certainly the Israel-Palestinian issue is a significant one, but it predated that. And it's a number that's not turning around. It's only getting worse so far for this West Wing. How the Democrats you speak to, what is their level of alarm, and what's the chart they would propose, the course that he should take to change it?
Jonathan, it's high, as you well know, for your own conversation. And what's the root of it? We talk about it on the show every day. A stunning percentage of Democrats don't want the president to run. We have a presidential election coming where a big chunk of both parties don't want their leading candidate to be running at all. That is tough to overcome. If they don't want you running, tough to say the right thing for them. And what I hear behind the scenes from Democrats, when you get Democrats off the record, you ask them about the president, the most common thing I hear, and I know you hear this in your conversations too, is what are you going to do? Like, that's the Democratic view. And that's the opportunity for this White House, is you've got to turn that around. You've got to make that, you've got to ignite an inspiring message. There's a year and a week to do that. And you're right, they're completely focused on it, but got to try something new. No way to sugarcoat that.
Well, they've got to bring together their base. That's the first step. And Rev, we had this discussion last night. Young voters, not inspired by Joe Biden. Black voters, the numbers just aren't there for Joe Biden. Hispanic voters, Latino voters, the numbers just aren't there for Joe Biden. Donald Trump, if things keep going, is going to be the next president of the United States if Joe Biden and the White House team doesn't figure out how to inspire young voters, Black voters, and Hispanic voters to go out and not just vote, but vote at record numbers.
I think that it is clear that he needs to have a new strategy, if not a new team, that's dealing with his messaging that can target in these areas that we're not seeing the enthusiasm. Black voters, young voters, Latino voters.
There's a lot of breakdown regarding the clips, but like when you look at Mike Figueredo, when I look at all these Biden voters, you know what I mean? How are they not sick to their stomach? How are they able to sleep at night? Because guys, I'm mentally impacted by all this shit, and I'm not complicit. I didn't vote for the guy, and I'm still like, what the fucking fuck is this? What is going? Imagine, I could not imagine the mental state I would be in, the sleepless nights I would have if I voted for Jim Crow Joe. And you goddamn right, I am going to do a victory lap, and I am going to remind these people for the rest of their life, because you guys have no idea how much heat I took. Being the former Bernie staffer who came out against voting for Biden, right? I had the infamous debate with Vosh while I was yelling at the motherfucker. And the people was like, man, this is Nick's delusional. Meanwhile, Vosh, for the rest of his life, has record of him telling people to vote for Joe Biden. While I was warning Vosh and his entire white audience, don't vote for the genocidal motherfucker. And you want to know what Vosh and people like Mike Figueredo and all those people that were fighting against me for and canceled me because my take on voting for less two evils? These motherfuckers now doing videos like Mike Figueredo, like, I can't believe Biden is doing this.
I want to bring his video.
If only some educated college dropout was warning you at the time. If only there was a black leftist journalist at the time who you guys relentlessly smeared, was warning you guys about Jim Crow Joe. But CJ, I'll let you chime in. You guys know I like the
Well, to your point, to this point that you were just making, just like with the idea of white supremacy, something doesn't exist until white people discover it. For the PMC class, in politics, nothing doesn't exist until a professional managerial class person says it. So when we say it, Nick, it doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying? We're indigenous, if you will, to the idea. Yeah, to the idea, and indigenous doesn't matter to the professional managerial class. Understand who they're modeling themselves after. But I'm going to bring up, for the sake of this segment, bring up just a little bit of the Mike Figueredo clip, since you refer to it, and it's good that you refer to it. And it's part of this whole thing, Nick, and that is RBN, Nick. We are so right on so many things, and we put ourselves out there, Nick.
Yeah, the first ones every time,
and take all the incoming, and then we just wait 2 weeks to maybe a month. Then it go, now everybody's saying what we said, and it, almost this stream is kind of gonna be receipts to that, because when we get to the Bernie Sanders, what we said about Bernie, when we get to the Peter Dow, what we said about Peter Dow, when we get to the
every fucking time,
you know what I'm saying? Everything we say is like, then it comes to fruition. It's like, what do you want us to do? All we're doing is speaking our truth. It's just that it's satisfying. I was saying in another stream a couple of days ago, it is satisfying that some of these things that we've been saying, taking the heat for that is coming true. And this thing with Biden, Nick, because what was the title of our stream just on Monday? It was something like Biden is losing something support because of Israel. And what
lost like 11 points among Democrats, right?
That's what we're covering for this segment right here, with Biden feeling it in the polls. Just like Nick alluded to, and one of us will bring it up in a second, he is down 11 points amongst Democrats. And what all these articles that I've been reading, Nick, all say, they zoom in and say, it's the stark contrast in the generations. It's just a dip off at a certain point. And the dip off have come right when this conflict with Palestine, with Israel, has ignited or escalated, I should have said. It's all around. This poll has been taken during that time. Go ahead, Nick, if you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, there's actually I found it on Friday because I tweeted about it quite a long time ago. I think this is it. I actually came and I found it. I reported on this a very long time ago regarding this subject, regarding how Democrats actually don't know their party's position on Israel. Look, I tweeted this and I reported on this around August 9, 2022. I remember I did a segment on this, maybe at Nick at Night, where polls show only 15% of Democrats support the party position on Israel. If you look at the graph, only 15%. And then if you look at the graph, like I remember this vividly. If you look at this graph, because I one of the people who report on Israel-Palestine before this month, right? There are a lot of people that love to talk about it now, but the reason why I had the position that I do that, and one of the reasons why RBN grew, because this is an issue I told people was very, very important. You were talking about how RBN gets things right ahead of time, right? Remember when RBN told RFK Jr. supporters and Marianne Williamson supporters why Israel and Palestine is not a small issue? And then you had RFK supporters are like, RBN making a big deal over Israel Palestine. Then this happened. Now the motherfuckers. What's in RBN now?
He's in the trash now. He's in the trash now.
Yeah. I mean, there was hardcore RFK Jr. supporters that renounced his support this month of RFK. I mean, we was like, you guys think this is not a big deal, this issue. But anyway, sorry, let me get back to this point here. When you look at Democrats, only over 50% of Democrats had no idea what Biden's position on Israel even was.
Wow.
If you look at this graph, look, 57% don't know. If you don't know, the blue side of this graph is don't know. 57%. And they was like, oh, we just going along with this shit. You know what I mean? We just Democrats. We watch the corporate media. They don't care about these issues. I watched Kyle Kalinske. I watched the Breaking Points. They don't talk about this stuff. So I don't know. I don't give a fuck what's going on in Israel. And getting this shit popped off, CJ. And that's what this is my first reaction when I saw that story, CJ, was this. When you see Democrats drop Joe Biden because of this, you got Democrats voting for monsters. Many Democrats are not bad people, but they have no idea what the fuck they're voting for, CJ. No idea whatsoever. Why? Because they get the news from TYT. They get the news from quote-unquote progressive outlets that are tied to the Democratic Party, and all they hear is the Democrats are the lesser of two evils. But guess who was out there telling people that was not the case? Guess who was there educating people about the Democratic Party position on Israel? Guess who was there that was educating people about John Fetterman's position on Israel? Remember when we told you guys that the left should never support John Fetterman because of his position on Israel. And then you had the Vanguard, Kyle and Crystal, Max, and entirely the white left. Like, no, we ain't paying attention to that Israel-Palestine shit. You had John Fetterman fucking running, saying that he's going to be the senator that take care of Israel. He's going to lean on his relationship with Israel. And at the time, white leftists didn't give a fuck. They're like, man, Nick, don't you know he's good on domestic issues? Why you bring up Israel-Palestine? And now John Fetterman comes out as pro-genocide, and these same people are like, oh my God, I can't believe John Fetterman betrayed us like this. Do you guys see how the left was inflicted with this scourge of anti-intellectualism led by the TYT left? That's why I got on YouTube in the first place. Because I'm like, the entire U.S. left is filled with a bunch of infiltrators, as we covered Saturday, and a bunch of fucking morons who don't have coalition build, and they lie about politicians. So as I say, my monologue, I'm going to pass it back to you, CJ. If I vote for Joe Biden, I'll feel deep shame. And I am 100% pro-voter shaming. I flipped on that position. I remember back in the day, I used to be like, man, I vote third party, but I'm not going to vote shame people. That's a horrible take. You're not going to shame people voting for genocide? That was one of my old horrible takes. We 100% should vote shame people. You vote for someone who increased the police budget, increased the ICE budget, funding genocides, and CJ, not like he like flipped, nigga. It was on his record. I was telling the Vosh, like, guys, do you look at this guy's record? They were like, record, facts. The past. Record. You guys are voting that stuff. Anyway, so y'all pass the you can hear lights down the screen.
Yeah. No, we got a while because we'll be on this for a few minutes. But to your point, you made a lot of good points. I want to make sure I cover them. This is why, Nick, what you're making, the point that you're making, the broader point that you're making is that this is why policy matters. Because the pseudo left, what you say, the pseudo left, oh, we're for this. They're for things, Nick, until things happen. They're only for these policy positions in theory. They're only anti-war in abstract, in theory. That's when they're anti-war. That's why they can be, oh, I was against all the wars in the past. I'm against any theoretical war in the present, but everything in the future, but everything in the present, they're not for. They're not against. The same thing. This is why policy matters. This is why you can't say, oh, this is why voting, this is why This is why when they say you must disconnect your emotions, your feeling from your vote, it's not, they're talking us into that. They're just that. They're just using that to mask who they really are. They're telling us that, but they're already there. What Sam Cedar say? I don't care if he's funding the state. I don't care if the State Department gets more money. What does that do to me? They don't, these policies that they claim make them left are just sort of fluid. It could be whatever, you know what I mean? It's not concrete in any sort of material belief. So it's terrible. But back to the to the topic. And the topic is Biden is really suffering. Where even on Morning Joe, Nick, you saw in that clip, Morning Joe says, look, Al Sharpton, Donald Trump is probably going to be president here. Unless he can turn around black, brown, young voters, Donald Trump is going to be president. And to another point you made, now that I see the Humanist Report on the screen, another point you made about vote shaming these people. You know how they're getting out of it? You know how I don't know if they're using this to mask their guilt, to make it seem like they don't feel guilty, is what they're doing. Ceasefire. If you're not calling for a ceasefire, then that, you know what I mean? These little crumbs of support after the effect. It's like, nigga, I told you he was about to get taken hostage. Now that he's taken hostage, now you want to be like, here, let me help you with some toiletries, nigga? What? Like, no, we told you in the beginning not to vote for him because he supports him monetarily. But go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
No, that's such a great point, CJ. All these Biden supporters going hard. Like people like Mike Figueredo, he has no leg to stand on. Like, I can imagine being at that Palestine protest in Kansas City and telling these motherfuckers I voted for Joe Biden. Like they will be so fucking pissed, bro. You have no leg to stand on. I'm 100% pro censorship. Pro vote shaming for this same reason. You notice that Crystal Ball have been going hard on Twitter about this issue.
Yes,
I've seen a few tweets.
I've
seen like maybe a handful. Like she's going hard. I'm like, homegirl, you were just the one who was shaming third-party voters for not thinking about voting for Joe Biden. And now seeing how ridiculous they was by promoting this lesser two evilism, they taking it upon themselves to try, I'm going to go hard on this issue. Nah, fam. I'm going to vote shame you to the end. You don't do this thing. Well, I'm calling out Biden now. No, because I promise you guys, as Mike Figueredo and Crystal and Kyle are making these videos, they're going to endorse Joe Biden this time next year. Unless they come out and say they're not going to do it, that is my assumption. Because they always talk hard, guys. I thought after, and I'll pass right to you, CJ, but I thought after 2016.
No, go ahead.
I thought after 2016 we was done. Like, I forgave a lot of Bernie supporters who voted for Hillary. Because I was like, all right, I'm glad that you learned your lesson. And that was back when I didn't believe in vote shaming. All right, so we're not going to do it again, right? Right? Then I proceeded to see the Green Party get 3.3%. Third parties did worse in 2020 than 2016. So I'm not playing nice no more. I played nice in between those 4 years, and I've seen a ton of Bernie people. I know you probably seen it too. They was like, nigga, fuck Democrat Party. I should never vote for Hillary. I feel bad for voting for Hillary. And then that Trump derangement syndrome came. And all of a sudden, Jordan Sheraton for Status Quo and Zach from the Vanguard is voting for Biden. I'm not letting it happen. I'm shaming every single one of them. Go ahead.
You got to keep it in front of mind. But let's listen to just like 60 seconds of this right here.
Plethora of anecdotal examples of Arab Americans saying they're just not going to vote for Biden again. Full stop. Now, if that isn't a wake-up call for the Biden administration, then nothing will be. Now, I think internally they know and they're scared shitless, but they're still not reversing course. Therefore, they are willingly bleeding support and not actively trying to change what's happening currently. Now, I know that most liberals and even a lot of leftists don't agree with that.
I'll be real quick, but one thing I know is
I'm
saying it just based on what I saw. I didn't see the video. I don't watch none of this guy's content. But based on what I saw, as he's doing this breakdown, at no point did he announce whether he's voting for Biden or not. You guys notice that? Am I the only one knows that?
Yeah.
Within the first 11 minutes and 40 seconds at least. Like, if he said this later, I'll admit I was wrong, right? But thus far, he just giving his neutral opinion on what Arab Americans are doing. Instead of saying, we should not be voting for Joe Biden because the Arab Americans who are not voting for Joe Biden are right because you guys see how strong, how desperately he is clinging to neutrality while reporting on this issue. This leads me to believe that he's going to vote for Biden again. Because why not take the segment in that angle? Because I had this segment queued up as well in my notes. I don't know when I was going to get to it, but you know what my angle to the story, CJ, is? What the hell took these motherfuckers so long? Like, they never should have voted Biden in the first place. You guys see how his angle, even when covering good shit, it's completely different where I would take it. Anyway, let's continue.
So let me give a short lesson here. Here is Ally 101. Be an ally. This is how you do it. What you're reporting on, Mike, the community who's most affected is saying, fuck Biden. We're not voting for him. If you're an ally to that community, you go, you know what? The community who I'm in solidarity with says, fuck Biden because of this reading. Now, whatever, let's say I don't have any egregious region. I'm not egregious myself. So I'm voting for him. Okay, let's go, guys. Let's vote. Oh, my ally says this. Oh, because of this? The way you stand in solidarity is not voting for him because of who you're in solidarity with. So this is allyship 101. But back to the video so we can so I can get to the actual two other videos.
So let's see if he ever share his. Let's see if he share whether he's going to vote for Biden or not. I would love to see if I'm wrong. Let's see if he injects his own personal opinion, or he's going to be this neutral reporter who don't give a fuck because he's not actually involved. It doesn't impact his life. You don't get this neutral shit from the RBN. I told you guys I am reporting based on what shit that impacts my life. I care about this shit. I want to see my community thrive. I want to see the betterment of the workers. But what these people do, they just like, well, the Arab Americans felt this way. Is it right? I don't know. Why are you being so neutral, nigga? That's for CNN. That's for news commentary. We should be advancing the working class. It's a small picky gripe. I know. I do acknowledge that. But I don't understand the neutrality from these people. But let's continue, CJ.
Agree with that sentiment that they're not voting for Biden. They think that they should vote for Biden because obviously Trump would be worse on the issue of Israel-Palestine. He'd be worse for Arab Americans. He'd be worse for every marginalized community, for poor people, for everyone across the board. And as someone with trans family members, I'm horrified at the prospect of Trump winning. I think he's an existential threat to the existence of my trans family members. And I don't think American democracy can survive another 4 years of.
I'll let it continue, but Biden is doubling down on every single policy of Donald Trump. So not only was I right when he not only not interjecting his opinion, he interjected his lesser of two evilism into this. That's unbelievable, CJ. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and he's actually worse than I thought here.
He's doing it right here. He's promoting Biden right here in the video.
Promoting Biden. Sorry, go back 10 seconds. I'll shut up for a bit. I actually want to hear this part. This is extremely funny to me. You guys just heard me give him benefit. I was like, hey, maybe later you may say fuck Biden, but no. Literally right after that, he comes out in support of Biden. Unbelievable. So we got to support the guy who genociding the Palestinian people because the illusion that Democrats care and support trans rights, it's absurd. But let's listen. I want to listen to it. I actually haven't heard this. This is extremely funny, CJ.
Vote for Biden because obviously Trump would be worse on the issue of Israel-Palestine. He'd be worse for Arab Americans. He'd be worse for every marginalized community, for poor people, for everyone across the board. And as someone with trans family members, I'm horrified at the prospect of Trump winning. I think he's an existential threat to the existence of my trans family members. And I don't think American democracy can survive another 4 years of Trump. Having said that, though, you don't have to agree with their decision to not vote for Biden. But it's
correct me if I'm wrong here. When they say that Republicans are threatening the existence of trans people, I am asking for a citation here because I actually looked into this. You guys know what the legislation they're proposing? Essentially banning transition for minors. This is something that when you poll the American people is deeply unpopular. It's a deeply unpopular sentiment. And if you have trans people, the people that already transitioned, there is no legislation that will erase them from existence. So if they already did the transition, nigga, the bill doesn't force you to go back and make you turn back to your original gender. So this is something that's been bothering me for a while. They keep saying, oh, we got to vote for a fucking genocidal monster because the other party don't support minor transitioning. And my position is, I'm not a member of the community, but I feel like this is something that should be up to debate. This thing where we gotta support someone who we gotta support a genocidal pro-ICE, pro-police party to protect children ability to go trans? You gotta see how those things don't fucking correlate to me. Like, that makes no sense. And I want to take pushback on this. That makes no sense. I'm gonna support the genocide of Palestinian people. I'm gonna support arming Nazis in Ukraine so children can transition. Like, what?
No. What you're talking about is trade-offs, and it's the same thing. Same thing I always bring up. But typically, when I bring it up in the past, it's been the trade-off when they say good NLRB nominees or appointees versus Armageddon. It's like I don't see how that's a trade-off, and you're making the same point.
And I'm willing to admit I'm willing to admit I'm wrong if there's legislation I have not seen. But I looked into this. The legislation they're talking about, the legislation that was flown around in Missouri, is all about banning transition to teenagers without permission of their parents or altogether. They're like the two variations of that. Either you need your parents' permission to transition,
or you can't do it all together,
or you can't do it until you're 18. There's nothing from what I've personally seen where they're gonna ban people from being trans. So Mike says he got trans family members. That this legislation don't even affect them because they're not forcing people to detransition, right? So their rhetoric is false, like just fake based on the facts. And only that is there's the intellectual ridiculous trade-off that these mostly privileged people want us to make. These are privileged people that live in the suburbs. They're like, the children's ability to transition is the most important issue, more important than genocide and strike breaking. And once again, I don't believe in that. I'm not saying that
we reject taking either one of those as the choice, and everybody should reject that. You're talking about lesser of two evils. That's what we should be rejecting. Let him finish his thought, and then I'll bring up the other video that I was going to show here. But let me let him finish his thought here.
But it's very important that you understand where they're coming from. You can't just lash out.
Hang on. Let me, because he did say something, and I think I was talking. We may have missed it. Let me rewind it just a little bit.
Someone with trans family members, I'm horrified at the prospect of Trump winning. I think he's an existential threat to the existence of my trans family members. And I don't think American democracy can survive another 4 years of Trump. Having said that, though, you don't have to agree with their decision to not vote for Biden, but it's very important that you understand where they're coming from. You can't just lash out in anger at them, which is what liberals usually do when it comes to voters' disillusion with the Democratic Party. You need to listen to what they're saying. They feel
instead of
hurt.
explaining,
they feel like they're just.
So I want you guys to understand the conscious choice that Mike Figueroa makes here. Instead of explaining to his audience why the Arab Americans who are not voting for Democrats are correct, because they are objectively are, he is saying, well, just don't get mad at them. You guys see the pro-Democrat bias oozing out of these people? Like, I would not even in a million years consider this guy a leftist. See, I would never in a million years consider this guy a leftist. I wouldn't consider him an independent media, but that was like the majority of like Bernie and progressives think. Progressives think that Mike Figueroa's to our left. Like that was like the average RBN derangement syndrome.
What?
They think the RBN is right wing adjacent, while this guy is on the left. It's absurd. Anyway, sorry, I'll let it continue. This is
that is absurd.
They're disposable. They feel used. They feel betrayed. They feel like they're not seen by this administration. And if Biden loses Michigan in 2024 because Arab Americans choose to stay home, he could lose the entire election. And guess what? That's on Biden. That's not on them. And Elie Mystal explains why in an op-ed for The Nation that Arab Americans aren't the only voters that Biden.
I covered this op-ed, by the way, but he refers to it right here.
And is alienating with his behavior here. He writes, Biden risks labeling himself as a president who is in favor of colonization and one who will turn a blind eye to ethnic cleansing and war crimes. And those are tough labels to shake once they take hold in communities of color. Voters of color are strategic and willing to swallow a lot of nonsense and vote for the lesser evil. But there are some who will simply not pull the lever for any president in any party who stands aside while an oppressed people is besieged, starved, and bombed into oblivion. Biden can entirely really appropriately called terrorist attacks against Israelis pure evil, but he can't seem to fix his mouth to say, turn on the water to civilians living in the desert. He can say that Palestinian people deserve dignity and respect, but can't unequivocally say cutting off electricity to civilians is a human rights violation. I'm sorry, but it's hard to see Biden's personal decency when he can't speak up for the thirsty. Biden is asking black and brown voters to trust that he values all lives equally, but that becomes almost impossible to believe when he endorses the treatment of Palestinians as collateral damage to a counterterrorism campaign. Moreover,
and I'll stop it there. I wanted him to include that part. I covered the article. I don't know if you had a chance, but I wanted you to hear what that. I was surprised, Nick. It's in The Nation. It's written by that guy Ellie something. He's one of them guys that comes on The View all the time. I'm gonna bring up the other video now, but I was surprised that it was actually in a corporate newspaper. That they were actually saying, hey man, you need to see what's up with this Palestinian issue. It's not what you think. So to your point, Nick, this is really showing, to your point, proves your point, they had no idea where their constituency is on where their constituency is on this issue. So, and it also speaks to even the cowbell left, even some people, the cowbell left, who, you know, you refer to, were as far as people who just going to vote brainlessly for the Democratic Party. Some of those people, this is an issue. This is a red line issue, even for them. I'm talking about when you get to a certain age. This is a red line for them also. Now, I do want to show you this video, but I forgot. I wanted to show you this headline first. Biden's approval rating among Democrats dropped 11 points in just 1 month. Now, the reason, because this is a corporate newspaper, because what it should say is, this is amazing, or this is astonishing to see an 11-point drop in just a month over an issue. That basically means this issue is a huge issue, but because, Nick, they're staunch supporters of the Israeli regime, largely even these corporate outlets, they don't frame it even in that way, because it should be framed that way, because 11 points in a month, that's crazy. That is crazy. Yes. And
in your own party?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, in your own party. That is crazy. And I'll possibly bring up the entire article and read more of it if we have a little time, but I'll read a snippet that I took out of the article. It says, and this is my tweet. I say, Biden is paying the cost for supporting genocide in Israel. And this is the quote from the article. President Biden approval rating among Democrats has plummeted to a record low of 75%, down a staggering 11% percentage points over just the last month, according to a new Gallup poll conducted between October 2nd and the 23rd. Let me pause here. There's a couple of things. The reason this is sending shockwaves, they may not be saying, I mean, if we saw it on Morning Joe, so this is how you know it's sending shockwaves. This is Gallup, Nick. This ain't no flimsy ass poll. This is Gallup. This is something that and
this is after months of Joe Scarborough saying Trump is screwed. You guys remember all the segments I covered? These bombastic claims of, oh man, Republicans are very fucking up, backing up with Trump. Man, you guys don't say, yeah, man, these polls saying Biden unpopular. Don't believe him, man. They fucking bullshit. You guys always underestimating Joe Biden. Now he had to come out and do that report. Ego hurt as fuck. But he's gonna pretend he never said that. His audience got the memory of a goldfish, so they're gonna forget it. But it's a big contrast. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and then later in the article, it goes on to say the divide is particularly stark between generations. Less than half, 48%, of Gen Z and millennials believe the U.S. should publicly voice support for Israel, according to the recent NPR. Now, you and I, we think 48% is a high. And the reason, again, this is a corporate newspaper, so even they are sort of shading towards Biden, even with this story being devastating. And let me explain, because I've covered these polls before, I know how they're getting the number 48. because if they were to split the millennials and the Gen Z, one of those groups, I forget, one of those groups is in the 20s, like 27%. Those are the people we're seeing at the college campuses, the younger group. Which one is younger? Is it Gen Z or millennials? Which one is younger, Gen Z or millennials?
Also,
millennials are Gen. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Millennials. I'm a millennial. I'm a young millennial. I think the oldest Gen Z, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, is like around like 22, 23. Like they're adults now. They're like in college. I'm more on the younger side of millennial. I think the millennial cut off around like 25, 26. I don't fucking know. I just looked it up one day. I know I'm on the younger side of millennial. I think based on the graph, you're like barely Gen X. Like if I remember the graph.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm barely by 1 or 2 years. Yeah, I'm barely Gen X.
Anyway, go ahead.
But Gen Z, so then Gen Z is the younger group. I was trying because I didn't remember. Gen Z is the younger group.
This comment says older Gen Z is 26 from Katie Lewis.
That's the oldest. Okay, so Gen Z group, 18 to 34 group in that poll that I showed in a different segment, they're at 27% support for Israel. So it's even lower. So they had to put them together to even get this number. But to them, 48% is devastating